Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello, Scott.
Josh, friend, the biggest thing in gaming continues to be the biggest thing in gaming. A hell of a lot of people talking about Xbox's acquisition of Activision, every single IP they've just snapped up, and what that means for the future of the industry to the tune of $68.7 billion, little finger time. However, there is more going on behind the scenes, which is now being revealed by one Jeff Grubb, as to how the deal actually came down overall. So there's more stuff that needs to be talked about.
Yeah, 100%. You know, one of the biggest questions after is Call of Duty going to now be an Xbox exclusive that was doing the rounds after this was revealed was essentially just why? Why now? Why is Activision deciding to sell? Why is Microsoft deciding to buy? And like you said, Jeff Grubb over on VentureBeat has published a report that's essentially looked into how the deal was broached and why Activision specifically was looking to sell and why now. So just to take a big quote that gives us a general overview of the reasons initially. Jeff Grubb writes, quote, "Activision Blizzard's future was more uncertain than ever, and not only because of the investigations into the alleged civil rights violations at its studios. Making massive blockbuster games was reaching an unsustainable level. While the publisher continues to have some of the biggest hits in the world, it has found it more challenging to commit resources to games outside of the Call of Duty brand. And in an industry where talent is in high demand, Activision struggled to attach the people that actually make the game." So part of this here is that the idea, according to this report, that Activision had no areas for growth. They bet everything on Call of Duty, and they didn't know where to take the franchise next. And the thing that they had to essentially put the work into doing was reinvigorating that franchise, but that meant getting expert developers in, key creatives into this company to, make the games of a higher quality. But the issue is, Activision has such a reputation, not just because of the sexual misconduct allegations that came out from Activision Blizzard last year, but if you look into the history of Treyarch and how much they crunched on Call of Duty, for instance, the reputation of that company was so bad that they just couldn't court the developers to come in and rebuild this franchise from the ground up. They couldn't grow it, they couldn't get the people in to continue to grow it. So, according to this report, in November last year, Activision were looking to sell. They approached Microsoft, and Microsoft pretty much went, "Yeah, how much do you want? We'll get this ball rolling right now." There's a little bit more to it, but that's the initial overview of the real reasons why this deal went down.
The thing is, we said this in the initial aftermath of when the deal first went through, just sort of thinking to the reality of, like you said, the horrific reputation that Activision has, which they very much built themselves, or especially in the likes of Kotick over time. That massive wage disparity between how much Bobby Kotick was on versus how much the coding teams, the design teams, literally everybody else other than him, how much they were getting paid. That massive disparity in wages, the overall crunch culture, the abuse culture, like you said, the allegations, all the assault stuff. They had a horrible, horrible reputation. And we said that in the initial aftermath of this deal going through, that there probably is a reality to a lot of those individuals, Kotick, the people that he's hired, the people at the top, those executives in those positions, or whoever else, being offered a way to get out with a bunch of money and just nip out the back door and try and, the spotlight's over here now, we're just going to be over here. And part of me just thought that. I was like, well, you pushed everything to the absolute limit. You've created one of the most toxic places in the industry for for what should be an all-out creative space, and you just pushed it to the absolute limit. And I think it's just weirdly, darkly ugly and ironic that they hit the glass ceiling with that stuff. They realized just how far they could push this model, this approach to what is supposed to be a creative medium, with annual releases, the polish that's still applied to Call of Duty, the fact that it is very much playable every year, which you can't say about a lot of other AAA titles, but that, was the result of them taking other studios that people loved, like Raven, like High Moon, and just bolting them onto Call of Duty. Just keep turning around the biggest, safest bets over and over and over again, and all the different aftermath that came from that, all the collateral damage that came from that. And I kind of hope, if there's one silver lining to all of this, that we can, as a collective, obviously you want it to happen more on the industry side, you can hold up Activision as an example of, this is what happens when you only chase the dollar, when you only chase the safest bet over and over and over again, and you have little to zero disregard, or little to zero regard for the individuals putting these games together. Just how much money can you make, and how much of a reputation will you get alongside? I think that you would hope that changes going forward, whether or not about Xbox get more directly involved with this stuff. Kotick doesn't seem to be sticking around after the closure of the deal next year if it does go through. So that'll be a massive change to the company overall in itself. But that's the thing. It's almost like the writing was on the wall anyway. But like, it's just that none of us thought that Xbox would be the ones to step in and hoover them up.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if you're like Activision, I don't see how you can look at your own company's reputation and then be shocked that people don't want to work for you. If you're a top tier developer with like loads of expertise, you're looking at all of the different homes you could go to. What reason did you have to go to Activision? Yes, you can get your name attached to a $1 billion franchise like Call of Duty, but if you look into the development of Call of Duty, you'll just see essentially a train wreck for like the past few years. You know, like I said before, Treyarch had to crunch on pretty much all of the Black Ops games. Development was swapped around so that Cold War could be salvaged when that was originally going to be headed up by Raven Software and another co-studio. I can't remember which one. I think it was Beanox. You know, they had to come in and crunch on that and get that game out the door, allegedly, according to the reports that came out of there. Or you look at the other culture of it, you know, you look at the sexual misconduct allegations that came in last year that just appeared systemic across the board, whether you worked in Activision or Blizzard. You look at the culture of the company laying off hundreds of its staff members after it's recorded a record year of profits. You look at all of these different stories that are linking together. Who says, if they have the choice to go wherever, that's where I want to work? Because I just don't know. I just don't think that is, you know, a thing that they could have clawed their way out of, and clearly they've recognized this, and instead of wanting to put in the work to turn that around and make Activision a place, a good place to work, they've just gone, Microsoft, do you want to buy it? Do you want to do the work? Do you want to inherit this and turn it around?
Yeah, because that's the whole thing. There were so many stories that have now come to light that were doing the rounds in the last few months of, you know, the likes of EA were apparently going to buy Activision at one point during this whole period where Kotick was looking to sell the company, which I would assume that would be an even worse way to go. If you're going to line up who's the best entity that could possibly acquire Activision, the state that Xbox are in, the state that Phil Spencer's in as an individual, as an overall, the history he's played inside Xbox and the route that he's taken over time, that makes more sense than the likes of EA doing it. But if we're speaking to the reality of just what the living hell Activision were like, or have been like, across the last few years, and especially the last few months, Bobby Kotick apparently was trying to buy positive praise for the company. Apparently he got in touch with the likes, Kotaku were named as one of the outlets that he tried to reach out to, trying to buy them out so he could actually try and manufacture some positive stories about himself and about the company. So, like I said, it feels like they hit that glass ceiling. They realized that, you know, the jig was up. They were very much in the limelight over and over again, weekly stories being written about this stuff, being legally investigated for all the the abuse stories that were going on.
Yeah.
And like I said at the beginning, if one of those deals comes around, I mean, apparently Phil Spencer spent his entire holiday break putting this thing together, but it seems like once it was floated that they would potentially be able to be acquired, you know, they took that deal once it came together. Kotick, as is said, is that he didn't actually want to, you know, he didn't start last year looking to sell Activision, but the way that things have gone, maybe this is the most viable thing for an absolute weird, toxic a-hole like him to be able to do.
Yeah, I mean, look, you even make a great point about, like, you know, like from the creative standpoint, you know, even from that perspective, like the writing seemed to be on the wall there. Like you said, you know, they have been systematically taking off developers from other projects like Tony Hawk or, you know, Crash Bandicoot and stuff, or Transformers, the Transformers games, and putting them on Call of Duty. They have bettered everything on Call of Duty, and now they're at a point where they don't know how to grow that franchise. And I think the telling thing is, it's not that Call of Duty has jumped off a cliff. It's not like the revenue for that franchise has tanked. It's just the fact that it's not climbing as much as it was. It's just the fact that it's dipped a bit that's got them in this crisis mode because they have literally nothing else to fall back on. This is what happens when you bet everything on $1 billion franchise. That $1 billion franchise is going to fail you eventually. It's not going to be $1 billion franchise forever. And if you don't have anything creatively to fall back on, if you don't have any other games to fall back on, like, that's you ultimately finished, because where do you go from there if you're not going to be willing to put the time in to build up smaller games to that level? And there's a good bit in this VentureBeat article where Jeff Grubb talks about their initial response to this kind of crisis over on the Activision side. And apparently their initial response was to look at Blizzard and take some of the developers from there who kind of knew what they were doing, but of course they were going through the exact same issues, if not worse, when it came to developers leaving and not wanting to work for that company, again because all of those allegations that came out last year were heavily weighted towards the Blizzard teams. So they were having, allegedly, again, a mass exodus of people. Activision itself wasn't able to fill its own roles, and it just felt like there was this level of rot across the board where these teams were just sort of fundamentally broken because no one wanted to touch Activision or Blizzard with a 10-foot barge pole, and rightly so.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's like I said, you look at the amount of IPs that Xbox just acquired, from True Crime to the likes of Singularity, one of the coolest first-person shooters ever made that I feel like only 3 of us ever talk about, me, you, and Ben Roy Turner. That's a phenomenal little game, and it's something that Raven put out, and I feel like there was so many more ideas that they could have made, they could have maximized the resources that were available, but it was just typical top-tier executive thinking of just, this is the safest bet, we're just going to keep turning this over and over and over and over again. And you and Jules put the video together a few years ago that you literally put together, researched and wrote it about, why Activision don't make games anymore, i.e. they subsist entirely off Call of Duty and at the time Destiny, and even Bungie, when they managed to get a way out, they took it, and there was all the insider reports of when they separated from Activision that they were literally celebrating, cheering, fist punching the air and drinking champagne, which gives you a nice little insight into how cloying and horrible that framework must be, to just know that almost everything is being compared to Call of Duty, or why aren't you doing something like that? So it's one of those things where the reality of the way that the whole thing's gone down, it's still up in the, I guess the long term is still up in the air, but you would like to think that the overall acquisition by Xbox and the amount of IPs they've just got, it could lead to, maybe we'll finally get the Tony Hawk's 3 and 4 remake, maybe we'll get Crash Bandicoot 5, maybe we'll get a new True Crime game, there's all these things that they could hopefully do. So yeah, let us know what you think down in the comments below about the way this whole thing has rolled out, and the real reason why Activision pushed everything to the absolute limit, and ultimately it backfired and they lost the vast majority of their third-party agency. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
And we'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.